What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Life of Champ podcast. For today's episode 249, we're going to be discussing the concept of overworked, underpaid, and no time. If you do not know me, my name is Champ and I help men win. I'll be helping you guys win by giving you this perspective and hopefully relaying something or at least trying to vocalize something that you potentially are going through. And I know for sure myself, I'm going through this as well. And this is probably going to be a very, very common sentiment, especially with people that are around our age, anywhere from the ages 18 to 25. This is probably going to be your experience, and if you're a little bit older than that, it might also affect you as well. So just to give you some background, right? So me, I'm 23. I'm gonna be 24 in December, right? I'm filming this one day before Halloween. This is October. Um, I'm in a position right now, as many people are my age, where it doesn't matter what job I work at, whether I had a college degree or whether I didn't have a college degree. It seems like most of us are working jobs that are going to be not paying us enough, right? This is something and just to give a disclaimer, I'm not here to complain. I'm not here to complain. I'm here to hopefully change. I'm here to hopefully give some perspective and hopefully here to give some more optimistic viewpoints and give a realistic planning to some of the people that might need it the most. So, with that being said, um, the people that are my age right now, I think we're all going through this where, like I said, whether we have a college degree or whether we don't have a college degree, when we're looking for jobs, if we're even able to find a job, it's very, very hard to find a job where it pays enough and it gives us the life satisfaction that we're looking for, right? Overworked, underpaid, no time. That is exactly what it is in today's society, right? Obviously, like I discussed in previous episodes before, the buying power that we have with our money that we're currently earning, even if we earn a decent wage, right? And then when I say, let's just say a decently hourly wage, it does not stretch as far. Money does not stretch as far as it once did, and this is an issue because people are going to wake up, and I'm here to begin to wake people up to this realization and to not just be one of these Gen Z people that are just complaining, right? Here to complain and not change anything, right? It seems like in today's society, in today's climate, having a job is obviously absolutely necessary, right? Having a job is the most valuable and honestly the least valuable thing that exists today, right? If you don't have a job, then of course having a job is very, very important. And if you have a job, it seems like it's not as important because it's the bare minimum, right? And it's interesting because when you don't have money, money is everything. And when you do have money, money is not enough. And that's what it feels like. Like I said, that is that sentiment of overworked, underpaid, and no time, right? If you have a job, then you're working, you're getting money. And that money that you're earning, that you're investing your time into, is not giving you enough result enough as much as your sacrifice is giving, right? You're giving 40 hours. I'm, I'm saying roughly. I'm going to go ahead and say at least 40 hours, typically. 40 hours of your life, right? 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. You're giving a little bit more than one third of most of your week to work, right? To get paid, like I said, not enough, right? You're going to get underpaid. And with that, you're going to have little to no time. And the mistake that most people make is even when they do have time, right? Whether it's their off days or whether it's the time that they have um, outside of work, maybe it's not spent the best way, and it's not giving you and reaping you the benefit that it potentially could. And that's a lot. That's obviously a problem in itself, which I'll get into a little bit later. But it seems very costly nowadays to have a job because obviously when you have a job, you're making money, of course, but then you don't really. When I say enough time, I feel like most people don't have enough time to make money outside of a job, right? And to some people, but quite frankly, I see it as somebody who's viewing the landscape of today and seeing exactly where this is. Like, you have to find a way. You have to find a way out of this predicament that we find ourselves in, that most people obviously find themselves in. We're in a predicament. We need to make money. Most of us nowadays aren't really fucking with the job because we understand where it leads to. do exist that aren't necessarily happy. They don't have enough money and they are not living a satisfied and fulfilling life, right? This is something that seems to be self-evident when we look at the previous generations that have came before us. And the route that they took is the route that most people are going down right now, whether they're conscious or whether they're unconsciously going down this route. This is the route that seems the most convenient, the most um, let's just say conventional route, right? This is going to be either going to school or obviously, graduating high school, getting a job right after high school, or going into the military, or going into whatever, or going to college, right? After that, you eventually get to the point where you're now working, and you're working for the next 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 years until you can finally, retire, which if you're in Gen Z, it doesn't seem likely that we're going to retire at an age where, we're actually going to have some vitality left in life, right? Especially with social security being a thing that is running out, quite frankly, right? I don't think we're even going to have that much money. So to me, what makes the most sense, right? We're not going to have that much money. And of course, you can invest in the Roth IRAs and stuff like that to guarantee yourself to be a millionaire much later on when you're 60 years old. But if you're like me, you're 20 something, right? All you can do is dedicate your time and energy. What makes the most sense to me and what makes the most sense to a lot of people is to dedicate your time, energy, and the money that you are earning today to try to make a difference today or tomorrow or the next year. That's what makes the most sense. It doesn't make sense, at least in my opinion, to save up or to spend a significant portion of the money that is already seeming to lose its value into something that is potentially going to be there, potentially going to be there in the next 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 years, like I had mentioned, right? That doesn't seem that wise to me personally, right? So the only option that makes sense, which I'm going down, is going to be to find a way to make money that's outside of working a job. Because here's the thing. If you look at the people that are actually living closer to the life that you would like to live, making more money than what a job is going to afford you, it looks like they have found ways to make money outside of a job. So it only makes sense in my mind that if you want to be something that's above average, that you're going to need to somehow, some way make money, figure out a plan, create a plan to make money outside of just having a job. Because quite frankly, just having a job obviously is less than satisfactory. Like I had mentioned, overworked, underpaid, and no time. There's people that exist right now that have a lot of time, they are overpaid, and they are underworked. That those people do exist, right? What makes you different than those people? Why can't you be exactly like those people, right? That is the question that I've asked myself time and time again. There's people that are doing the things that I would like to do. Maybe they're even not even as good as me when I want to do it, or when I can do it, or when I'm developing these skills, yet they have more time than I do. They're overpaid and they're underworked, right? And another thing that I want to be very, very clear with is I don't necessarily prescribe to this more work, more outcome. I think this is actually a perfect example of this, right? We've seen this where previous generations have worked their ass off, worked their entire life, dedicated a large part of their life, dedicated to work, and still don't get enough in return, right? So that doesn't make that much sense for me to take that same exact route, to work a job, to not get paid enough when we're already getting fucked in this economy anyways, right? So you must find a way. Find a way to make more money outside of just having a job. Find some type of way that so many of other people, at least seemingly on the internet, seem to have found, right? And at the very least, it seems like it's very, very high risk, which is a little odd. It seems very high risk for you to be in the position where you're only having a job and you're not thinking about working towards or acting on anything that's going to give you more benefit than what you're currently working towards, which is just a paycheck, right? So what seemingly was something that was so, the conventional route, something that seems safe, a safe bet, it seems like it's not as safe of a bet as it once was, because like I said, it just depends on what the lifestyle that you want to live. That's something that I've always asked my viewers to go ahead and ask for themselves, right? Ask yourself the question right now, what lifestyle do you want to live, right? And once you become clear with this lifestyle, at least once I became clear with this lifestyle that I would like to live, being clear and definite of what this is going to look like, it doesn't seem like having a job and working 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week. It doesn't seem like that's exactly the lifestyle that I would like to live, right? The lifestyle that I personally would like to live is a lifestyle of freedom. being able to be financially free, location free, and actually have some time freedom to do the things that I want to do, to actually enjoy the life that I would like to live, right? And there's some people that are going to hear this, they're going to say you're arrogant, they're going to say a lot of different things. That's far fetched. But quite frankly, how far fetched is it when we live in a generation where that is actually possible? Maybe previous generations that wasn't as possible, but this generation for damn sure is the most possible. It's the most possible for that to happen nowadays. You see people making money dumbass ways. They invest in a cryptocurrency or in one of those little coins, whatever, and then they make a ridiculous amount of money. I'm not saying that's what you need to do. I'm saying there's many ways to go ahead and make money nowadays, right? And to be stuck in living in the 1960s by working and needing to work more in order to get more, I feel like that doesn't that lens, that paradigm doesn't exactly work as well as it once did, right? Like I said, overworked, underpaid, and no time. So, like I said, it's very, very costly for you to just have a job and not trying to find a way to make any other money outside of having a job. And I think it is obviously very costly to not have a job. If you don't have a job, then quite frankly, you're going to be cooked in some type of way anyways. And obviously, because then you're just going to be focused. The time that you do have, right, you're going to have more time, right? No time, right? But let's just say you're going to have more time, but you're going to be not, you're still going to be underpaid because you're still not going to be getting paid. Yes, you're going to be underworked, but in the same breath, you're going to be spending the time that you do have, the abundance of time that you do have, anxious and worried about your next moves or your next meal. And obviously, that's not a way that I would like to live because that has a lot of unnecessary worries that let's just say that don't make that much sense to have, especially when you could be working a job and then not needing to worry about this, right? So I see this, and maybe you see this as well. AI is advancing in hyper speed, and with that being said, a lot of the jobs that do exist nowadays will not exist within the next 5 to 10 years. And this is my prediction, but this is not only a prediction, but this is something that we're seeing in real time. Companies are trying to figure out ways where they don't have to pay people, where they can just replace you with the robot who's not going to bitch about getting paid or being underpaid. They rather just pay a robot who's going to do the job, who's going to be obedient, and who's going to be able to replace the workers that do exist. Obviously, like I said, the technology is only going to advance further and further. AI is going to only advance further and further. And quite frankly, with that being said, most jobs are going to be replaced. I don't know when. I wouldn't even say most, but some jobs are going to be replaced. And the idea of, let's just say, starting a business or working for yourself or following your dreams, that was once viewed as very risky. And I view that as a very, very old time type of way of thinking. That was the view of the past. It seemed risky to do those things. But in this world that we're living in currently, it seems like that makes the most sense, right? It seems like, you know, avoiding risk and taking less reward seems to be way more risky than it ever has before, right? You get a job, you do minimal, you get minimal, right? You put in minimal discipline, you put in minimal willpower, you put in minimal brain use, and you get minimal pay in return. It seems a lot more better. It seems way better for you to be in a position where you're spending your time and energy that you do have, right? Hopefully that's going to be after a job, before a job, or on your off days. We're going to be investing it into something that's actually going to make a lot more sense. That's going to be a lot more modernized and something that is, of course, what most people view as risky. But I would say it's even more risky for you to do something or to stay a specific way that isn't modernized, which is just going to have a job and not follow your dreams, not find a way to work for yourself, not start a business of some kind, right? That is far more risky in my opinion. And of course, it's going to take a lot of sacrifice. Of course, it's going to take a lot of thinking and it's going to take a lot of your energy and time. But quite frankly, if we're young, as I would assume that you watching this, you're young, it would make the most sense. We have the most energy that we will ever have in this life for the most part. At least I can speak for myself. I have the most energy, and quite frankly, even though I'm having less and less time, I have the most time, right? And obviously nothing is guaranteed. Life could be gone tomorrow for me. But here's the thing. While I'm alive, I want to be doing all that I can to hopefully create somewhat of a better future. And that's only going to make sense by trying to build something, right? And like I said, I think right now the riskiest thing to do is to work and to give up the most valuable thing and the least valued thing. I'm gonna say that one more time, right? The riskiest thing is to work a job and to give up the most valuable thing and the least valued thing, which is your time. Your time right now, if you're working a job and not doing anything outside of just working a job, right? You're just enjoying your life and you're working your job. And you're getting overworked, you're getting underpaid, and the time that you barely have, you're spending that doing whatever that isn't building the life that you would like to go ahead and live, right? Maybe it's just goofing off. It could be playing video games, watching shows, watching sports, or whatever, right? And here's the thing: I'm a victim of this as well to an extent, but you're giving up. You're giving into a world where it's not going to give you the life that you would like to live. Just that's plain and simple, right? And at the very least, we see, and it's easy for me to observe so many people who are living their life and they're giving up the most valuable thing, but it's not valued as much because, like I said, when they do have it, they goof off, right? Least valued. Time is obviously important. Everybody can recognize time is important. For some people, whether they can admit to saying, you know what, of course, time is more valuable than money, but then you look at their actions, you look at the ways in which they move, consciously or unconsciously, and it looks like money rules their life. Money is their god. Money is more important than time. And of course, like I had mentioned, right, a little bit earlier in the podcast, right? If you're not making money, then the biggest thing about not making money is not having enough money. That's the biggest thing. But when you are making money, you must dedicate your time to not just having the best time that you possibly can, to not to indulge within your vices just because you can, just because you have the free time. And I'm not saying don't do anything fun. I'm not saying don't spend any time with your family. I'm not saying don't do anything that's entertaining ever. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is you're getting fucked in this game. We're all getting fucked in this game. Now, what you decide to do about that is up to you. And if you don't do anything with it, then quite frankly, you must be completely content with the decisions that you're making and the life that it will reap. But if you're like me, who sees that as a possibility, if I decide to slack off, if I decide to fall into all of my vices, if I decide to just watch movies, watch shows, play video games, indulge in porn, and all these things, it's going to give me a life that I'm going to truly regret living, right? And I don't want to be living in that predicament. I don't want to live in that headspace. So the thing that makes the most sense is to find a way that's going to get you out of the predicament that most of us are in. Overworked, underpaid, and have little to no time. So with that being said, you need to build an opportunity. You need to take your time and see it as an opportunity and to do something with it. And the first steps, I'm going to give you the first steps, and I'm not going to tell you what you need to specifically do, right? Obviously, I have a podcast. Obviously, I have a community, and I'm going to be helping the people in the community, obviously, right? But at the very least, the first steps to this is going to look like this. First, you need to think, right? Even before thinking, you need to recognize that you're getting fucked in this game, which is going to be the podcast. Hopefully, it's giving you enough perspective. Now you need to think. Think of a way out. Observe the people that do exist in this world. Look at the many ways you can make money. Look at the many opportunities that do exist that are out there, right? Think, observe, and then you act. When you have enough observation, when you have thought enough, whatever that looks like, and you're not lying to yourself that you're just thinking still, now you can act, and when you act, now you can iterate. What I mean by iterate is now you can change and alter things that make sense, that are going to get you closer to the result that you're trying to look for, right? You act, you iterate, you act, you iterate, and then you dedicate. You dedicate your time, you dedicate your energy, you dedicate your life force, you dedicate the vitality that you have, that you're living with at a young age. And after you dedicate, after you instill self-discipline, after you instill willpower, now you wait. And hopefully this is what you're doing. Hopefully you're in a position where you are waiting. You're putting in the time. You're understanding where this potentially can give you. Hopefully it's somewhat of a realistic business model, realistic approach. And maybe even if it is a little unrealistic, it might even work out for you because maybe there's something to be learned there at the very least. But in the very least, you need time off. And you need not to waste the time that you have off. And you need to do something with the time that you have off. And that something needs to look like being able to move the needle in a direction where you want your life to go. That seems like it's the most sense. That seems like it makes the most sense to me, right? The issue isn't that people have, they don't have enough time, right? I feel like even though that's kind of been what I've been mentioning a little bit earlier, but we people have time. It's the fact when I say no time, I'm saying people more than likely are wasting their time. So it's almost as if they have no time. Because the time that they are having, the time that they do have, they're just wasting it in the grand scheme of everything. They're just truly wasting it. And they're not building anything. And like I said, if you're content and if you're okay with living a life that is less than satisfactory, that you will regret one day, saying, you know what, maybe I should have put down the video games 20 years ago. Maybe I should have stopped doing this or stopped indulging in this 15 years ago. If you don't want to live with that regret, if you don't want to live with that paradigm, then your best bet is to try to look for something that's going to actually be able to move the needle in the direction that you want your life to go. And that is what I'm doing. And that is what I'm trying to help people do because that just makes the most sense. This is something that will make a lot more sense as time goes on. And of course, if you don't understand this or if you're older or for whatever, and you don't understand this perspective, then I can see exactly why you would not want to do these specific things. But quite frankly, hopefully I laid it out vividly enough for you to recognize that if you don't do anything, that is a very risky behavior, right? The riskiest thing you can do nowadays is to take no risk, obviously. So take some risk. Be willing to lose something. Be willing to gain something. Be willing to invest in something that has a high upside. And quite frankly, of course, having low downside. But here's the thing: that's you can only have. You need that juxtaposition. You need the ability to be able to have both things possibly happen, right? And like I said, if you don't, then you're not going to be able. You lose the risk, or if you don't risk anything, you lose the chance, right? No risk, you lose the chance, and it seems only this is the only thing that really makes sense to me, right? Nothing's ever predictable, and I'm not saying you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket, but choose something that has high upside as well as high downside. Because at the very least, if you're just choosing a job, what you're doing is you're choosing something that doesn't have high upside and doesn't have high downside. And the downside, the downside is in somewhat a high downside if you have any ambition in life in general, right? Then having a job, that downside is actually very, very low, right? And the upside, like I said, is just very, very minimal. But most people, I would like to think are wanting more than the average, especially if you're watching content like this or even agreeing with some of the things that I have had said in this podcast. Then it would make so much sense for you to go ahead and build something for yourself. Figure out what that is. Like I said, maybe you need to spend more time thinking. Maybe you need to spend more time acting. Maybe you need to spend more time dedicating. Maybe you need to iterate a few more things. Maybe you need to do more observations. Observe the world, observe the people around you, observe what is working, observe what is not working, and make a decision from there. But at the very least, like I said, the riskiest thing you can do is to just have a job, to not do anything at all, to be wasting your time, to be living a degenerate lifestyle. That is a true waste of your time. And the thing that I recognize with this generation that also makes it very, very interesting is I feel like so much of us have some bold plans. We're looking forward to the future. We're planning for the future. We have so many things that we say, oh well, once we have enough money, or oh, once we, in a couple years from now. The thing is that's interesting is you're probably still not gonna have enough money if you don't do anything. If you just have a job and you're not good with your money, then quite frankly, you're probably still gonna be in the same predicament. You're just gonna have a few years wasted. So if you want to have children, if you want to live a true lifestyle that is close to the life that you had already originally envisioned for yourself, then that's going to look like you doing something outside of a job. But you can't expect these things to happen if you're not making any moves that are going to put you in a position where you're actually moving the needle. So I understand it is nice to be ambitious. It's nice to have big goals, but if you have no big action, no intention, no dedication, no willpower, no self-discipline, then all of that just goes to waste. So don't waste that. Don't waste that ambition. It needs to be somewhat based in reality, but quite frankly, even everybody, even the people that even the people that are some of the biggest people out right now, right? They were once delusional, right? They once believed in something that everybody else would say you're insane for believing, for thinking. So I'd say there's something that we must learn from those people. It is okay to be delusional at times as long as it's somewhat based in reality, as long as you can see potential in it, and as long as it's something that can potentially actually work. Something that has roots in the truth, or that has um that just what that makes sense, right? Like I said, with the observation, hopefully it'll be able to make sense. But that's pretty much all I have to say for today's episode. We are living in weird times right now. Like I said, overworked, underpaid, and no time. Or, like I said, a damn near waste of time for most people. So, do something with your life. Don't just watch this episode and not do anything because so many people are going to do this. They're either not going to watch it or they're going to watch it and not do anything with it. So, do something with your life, plan it out, think, do some soul searching, figure out what lifestyle you want to live, figure out what skills you want to develop, figure out the um, the interest that you want to dedicate yourself to, because quite frankly, that's all that matters in this life, right? And to end it off, this is episode 249 of Life Champ Podcast, talking about overworked, underpaid, and no time. My next podcast is going to be on Thursday. Make sure you want to follow me on Twitch, TikTok, Rumble, Spotify, Kick, at all Life of a Champ podcast on every single platform. And other than that, welcome to the winning team. If you want to join my community and get coached by me personally, it's going to be the link in the description. Top link is going to be my school link. Tap in with that for sure. And other than that, like I said, I'm going to be going live on Thursday again for a podcast, as well as on Monday. New videos coming soon. Tap in with that for sure as well. I look forward to making a little bit more videos. Like I said, iterations, fellas. Make some iterations, and maybe it'll work out for you. But other than that, you guys have a good night. Tap in with the next podcast on Thursday.